If your business is doing over $2 million in cash and still feels tight, especially at random times, there's a good chance you're making very smart decisions, but with the wrong timing. Or as I like to say it, you're making smart decisions in the wrong season. In this video, I'm going to give you a practical way to read the economic weather and translate that into specific decisions that you're probably making in this quarter around things specifically around hiring, your ad spend, pricing, debt, and your CapEx. How do I know this to be true? That is because I've been mentoring and coaching since 2010. I work with over 2,400 businesses. I founded a company called Abundance Global, and it's based on one of the principles. I was a commander in the Navy for over 18 years. Also, I was a dentist. So a lot of the structure, the rhythm, and the professionalism that I'm going to take you through today come from that background applied in a business context. And also, how do we know it to be accurate and true? Is because every month I get a profit, loss, and balance sheet from all our members all around the globe. So what I'm sharing with you is really what we see being in the trenches with real numbers, not something that someone thinks is a good idea, but real things, because what we notice is the pattern is consistent. A strategy without the context becomes guesswork. Our mantra is data over drama. In this video, we're going to cover the 4 economic weather modes and the specific decision shifts that you make inside each of those. Then I'm going to give you a simple monthly rhythm so you can stop relying on gut feel and make sure you run your business from data, not from drama. So hit save and come back to this video when you're about to make a really big decision or big call and you're feeling under pressure, and this will be a great reminder for you. Most bad decisions aren't stupid. They're just usually too early or they're too late. So what is it that I mean around the economic weather? What we're talking about is like the economic climate that is going on. It's the context on which your strategy sits inside. So you can have the same plan, but it's in a different season and you get a completely different outcome. And I'll say it in a different way, is that the right strategy at the wrong time is the wrong strategy. And owners treat timing like, oh yeah, that's some nice to have thing. I hear it in the newspaper, but at the end of the day, I don't see it in my profit and loss or balance sheet. So it doesn't really matter, but it does. And it shows up later. It shows up later as stress, as cash flow issues, and for a lot of people, just sometimes out of business. Because the market doesn't reward your effort and your energy you put in. It rewards fit. And what I mean by that, a great offer, great price, capacity, cash discipline, and those need to be matched to the season that we're in. And when you ignore the timing, you end up forcing outcomes. You force outcomes around your spend, around then people end up discounting, and then over time they have a cash flow issues. And that's not growth, that's strain and that's stress. Because strategy without timing creates false confidence. You feel decisive, you made your strategic plan, you got your leaders in, and this is going to be great. And you go out there and you put your best energy, your best foot out there, and then what happens is the numbers punish you by the time you get to 90 days later. I don't want that for you. And the tell sign is that when you keep on saying, on paper, this should work, paper isn't the marketplace. So what are the things that we see? What are the symptoms that pop up? As a great tell sign in that. You're hiring because you're busy, not because demand is stable and delivery has a clean throughput. Number 2, you're increasing your marketing spend because leads feel slow, without checking whether your conversion and delivery can actually absorb the volume. And the third thing is you're taking on debt because you want speed. Now the consequence of this is firstly that you lock in some fixed pricing in a season that really requires a lot more flexibility. The second thing you find is that you start to train your team to expect panic decisions and not calm cadence. Now it's not your intention, but it's what happens, and we see this happen every day of the week. Now, the model on which you want to be thinking around this, the mental model around this, is to treat the economic weather like you're in aviation. And that is, you can fly in most conditions out there, but you don't always take off with the same fuel plan or at the same altitude, depending on where the wind's coming from. And the route that you might take is very different because you know that coming up, there's going to be some weather turbulence that are coming up. And so too with business, we want to run the same sort of thinking and the mental model that goes behind it. Because the economic weather doesn't replace the strategy. What it does is tells you which strategies are safe to run right now. And timing is strategy. So if that is true, then the next problem is you're probably making irreversible decisions within a reversible information flow. So if your decisions are hard to unwind, then you need a higher bar for certainty. What we see happen is really great businesses get hurt by some fixed commitments or some decisions that they make that they're doing off a short-term signal that they see in the market, like a real pump in their lead flow that's coming in. They go, all right, this is fantastic, we need to scale up. And what happens is those decisions become irreversible. So what are some classic examples that we see? We get some senior hire people. Oh, we need a C-suite person to fix this. We need a real heavy hitter. Fixing some really long-term leases, some really big capital expenditure, committing to some long-term debt. Could be some major pricing moves or a really big inventory position. All those things are good examples that we see people do, and they go, oh yes, we've got this great bull run. What ends up happening, a lot of hubris kicks into gear, and that's overconfidence. Go, yes, we're doing this, and they can be so confident with me. And yet at the same time, what I see is that confidence ends up leading them into a lot of hot water, and I don't want that for you. What we want to do is also think about, well, okay, there's some fixed decisions. What about some reversible decisions? What are some things that you can do? Short-term experiments in marketing, using temporary contractors to fill capacity, small pricing tests rather than big hits, limited product tweaks rather than doing a big overhaul, just doing a little bit. The trap is treating a good month like it is a major trend. A spike doesn't mean it's a cycle. And there are three important parts to the mechanics. So let's go through those three important parts. The first one is, the bigger the business, the longer the lag between decision and the consequences of those decisions. And that lag can create a false sense of safety. In other words, you're doing something, oh my God, this is working. Actually, no, it's just momentum from the last 3 or 4 quarters that lets you go and go, this is great, we're in the right direction. You keep on doubling down. Big mistake, don't do that. Second thing is, payroll is also a timing amplifier. When you add fixed costs, you reduce your ability to maneuver and your flexibility. And the third thing is, capacity decisions change your overall delivery standards. And once the standards start to slip, it's super expensive to rebuild trust. You know it's not working when, firstly, you're approving headcount because you're personally tired, not because the unit economics, or we call it the scalable unit, supports the role. Secondly, you're buying equipment because it feels productive, while your cash conversion is already stretched. Oh, we can see where it's going. And then you go, let's just double down, we'll buy another one of those things because it'll keep ramping up. The third thing you hear people say is you're pushing discounts. Oh, if we just get this next deal, then it'll give us the volume that we can go and purchase this next thing. And then you wonder why cash feels worse despite you've got this extra revenue kicking in. Higher revenue, but then your costs then kicked up. Now, the consequences of that is you end up doing growth that increases the risk, but also reduces your flexibility or reduces your optionality of things you can do. The real danger is that the founder or the leader loses their calm, and that goes through the rest of the team. Decision cadence turns reactive, the team feels it, and that's just like cancer beginning to set into a company. Just to be clear, the goal isn't to be super conservative. What it is to be able to protect your optionality or your ability to make different decisions until the season becomes very clear. You don't want to make permanent moves off a temporary signal, and I see people do this day in, day out. Now, here's what most people miss. The economic weather isn't just one thing. It has modes, in fact, 4 of them, and each of those modes change the type of move that you make. Let's now go through what those 4 modes are. Expansion and volatility can look the same in your inbox. The decisions, however, are not the same. Whether you're in an expansive season or a volatility season, for the untrained eye, they look exactly the same. But the decisions that you make in each of those seasons is completely different. We want to go through that. And let's go through, particularly, there are 4 modes that we want to care about. There's expansion, consolidation, volatility, and reinvention. So let's go through the first one, expansion mechanics. What do we see in that phase? And that is, demand is more forgiving. Customers decide faster. Good operators can scale without a heroic effort. Okay, what are the decisions that you make in an expansive mode? You hire for throughput, you invest in marketing that you can measure, and you remove any bottlenecks in delivery. What do you do from an expansion as far as pricing? You want to tighten the floor. It's not a race to the bottom, which a lot of people do. What we want to do is this is an opportunity where you can actually test the market and you can see where you can push the pricing point. What do you do around debt in expansion mode? You do only if cash conversion is clean and the use of funds is it helps you shorten the cycle. So you can, but just make sure that you're only doing it in a tight window and that you're not feeling, because what happens is that the growth can get a lot, but then people put more in, the market changes and they've got this massive debt. We don't want that for you. Okay, let's go into the second one of the seasons, and that is a consolidation. So let's go through the consolidation mechanics. In the consolidation mechanics, buyers get more selective. The sales cycle starts to lengthen now. What we see happen is sloppy operators now start to get exposed. There's that phrase that when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. Anyone can make money on a rising market, but when it starts to consolidate, go down, that's only when the great operators win. So what else happens in this consolidation? When you are going through decision making in consolidation, you want to protect your margins, you reduce your waste, you tighten your receivables, big deal that one, and stop vanity projects. What do you do in a consolidation phase when you're hiring? You upgrade key roles, but really avoid broad headcount growth without a very, very clear return on your investment, or as we like to say that your revenue employee, and you know the metric on that before you go and recruit. Let's go through the third category, and that is the volatility phase. Let's go through the mechanics of that. And that is signals get conflicted, lead flow whipsaws up and down, and forecasting confidence drops. Just think what happened when the pandemic hit and what went on and all the media drama that went on. That usually happens. What else happens around decision making when volatility kicks in? One, we get shorter commitments, which is what you want to do. You want to run smaller tests. You want to increase your cash buffers and keep decision cadence tight. Don't leave it too long. Better to have more meetings and more times you check in on that, but you make them shorter rather than like once every quarter or once every month you make a decision. Otherwise, you'll be off track. They're the three main ones that we see. But then what happens is when the cycle goes all the way around, we end up in the fourth one. And the fourth part is reinvention. So let's talk about the reinvention mechanics. What do you see? Well, what used to work stops working because the market completely shifts. Not because you've lost your edge, but because there's a whole reinvention phase that is happening. What does that mean from reinvention from a decision-making process? One, definitely want to get in and revisit your offer mix. And that means looking at who's your ideal client, like who do you want to serve and how's that changed and updated. You want to keep your core offering as profitable as you can while testing anything else that you might want to be putting into place. But it's really about locking down. And the question I ask is, if you only had one product, one thing that you could sell, that you could consistently sell, has good margins, usually not the most highest price point thing you do, but easy to sell, easy to deliver, you can do it with your eyes closed, that's the thing you want to be focusing on. Now, the consequences that we see of misreading the mode, so if you do the right strategy in the wrong timing, then what we see is people either overcommit or they get squeezed, or they freeze, and when they shouldn't, they should be going, and they miss a massive opportunity as they go forward. So the mental model that I want to pass to you is that, yes, you've got the same business, but in a different season, you make different decisions. So your job is to choose the right style of playbook, not the loudest one that is screaming at you. And the economic weather is a playbook selector. It tells you whether to press tighten, whether to hedge, or whether to redesign, or whether to put your foot down on the metal and absolutely go for it. So here's the kicker. You can do the same move, but in a different season, and guess what? It delivers a completely different result. And it's not you, it's that you just did it at the right timing. Which brings us to the real lever. And that is you need to translate the mode into 6 decisions you're actually making more than likely in this next quarter that we know most businesses are. And that's what I'm going to go through next. Follow me now. Go on and click the button and follow me if you want to have consistent, calm growth without that cash flow roller coaster. So you've got this video and also the other ones that are going to really help you to have an even more successful and profitable business as you're going forward without the stress. Let's jump in now to the fourth big idea that we need to jump into. And that is, your understanding of the economic weather is only useful if you understand it and you know how to apply it today. We call that your economic action plan. So what I want to do is I want to go through examples of everyday things and decisions that people are making, and what I'll do is I'll give you the three of the modes, and then you got the same decision but how you would change it based on the different economic weather pattern of that time. So it's the same decision you need to be making, but around the same topic, but what are you going to do differently? So let's go through some examples using everyday business decisions that I know people are going to be making and how the weather forecast is going to change those decisions. So you get the same thing you want to decide upon, but based on the economic weather pattern, you're going to tackle it differently. We're going to go through three of the four of the economic weather patterns. That is the pattern of expansion, consolidation, and volatility, because they're pretty straightforward. Reinvention is a whole new beast. So let's jump in, let's go through. We're going to go through 6 decisions that classically most people will be making, usually over a quarter. So here are the 6 examples of common decisions and how they are different based on the different economic weather patterns. So let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about hiring. So when you're hiring and you're in an expansive phase, you're hiring to remove throughput constraints and protect your delivery standards. Okay, that's expansion. When we're in consolidation, we hire only when it increases our margin or reduces the founder's dependence or frees up the founder's time. When you're in a volatility phase, what we want to do is we want to prefer to use contractors or short-term contracts or part-time roles because that allows us to be more flexible, and we do that over permanent headcount. Let's go to the second decision we wanted to go through. Okay, so let's just talk about inventory and building capacity. So in an expansion mode, we want to increase the capacity with clear lead indicators and delivery readiness. So that's what we're doing in expansion. We're in consolidation. What we're doing is we're reducing dead stock, passing it on, we're tightening our purchasing, and we're improving our scheduling discipline. Same question, what about in the volatility phase? What we want to do is we want to have shorter lead times. We want to definitely avoid big speculative buys, and we need to keep cash liquid, in other words, a good amount of war chest. Okay, let's go through the third decision making of the 6 I'll go through. What do you do around your marketing spend? When you're in expansion phase, you press what's measurable and convertible. In other words, when I press, I mean foot down on the accelerator. As long as it's measurable and convertible, you can see it, you've got the numbers. What do you do for marketing in consolidation? You focus on retention, you focus on referrals, and high intent channels. Now, it's not to say you don't do them outside that, but this is where you want to put an extra focus. When you're in a volatility market, what do you want to do here? Smaller tests, faster feedback loops, no big brand spending disguised as some big amazing strategy. Not a time to do that. Not a time to go and do a big brand overhaul. That's a waste of money. Let's get into decision 4. Decision 4, let's say we want to talk about pricing for a moment. So when you're in expansion mode, in pricing, this is the time you can test a little bit and you can raise the floor up a bit. You can clean up any discounting and you can start to really lock in and protect your margin. You want to be building the profit so you can build your war chest. What do we do in a consolidation phase? In this phase, we tighten our packaging, we remove any low margin work, and we price also for risk and complexity. A lot of people go, oh yeah, I'll just fit it all in. It's like, no. And this is where scope creep kicks in big time, especially for service and also in a lot of product delivery businesses. Got to be very, very careful of that. In volatility mode, what we want to do is we want to avoid panic discounting. We want to make sure that you're utilizing your terms and your deposits and make sure that there's no scope leakage in what you're doing. Okay, so that's in a volatility market. Let's go to the fifth decision. So what do we talk about? Debt, and do we bring debt on? How does that look? Well, in a expansion mode, you can bring on debt only when it shortens your cycle time and cash conversion is reliable. In other words, the marketing to sales to the delivery is all very reliable. Then it leads us into the second part, and that is consolidation. In consolidation phase, we want to reduce your exposure. Also, this is time to go and renegotiate terms and protect your buffers. You'd be surprised at what you can renegotiate. If they don't want to renegotiate with you, guess what? There's probably other suppliers or other people out there that you can negotiate with. What do you do in a volatility market? Treat debt like a risk multiplier. I'll say it again. Treat debt like a risk multiplier. In other words, if you're putting too much debt, then the risk increases as you go forward. It's almost like you're going off a waterfall, and it's going on, you're going, and then you're falling. Don't pretend this is a neutral market. Okay, so a big deal on that one. That's where people get caught a lot. Let's go to the last decision, and that is around decision 6, around capital expenditure. So in an expansion mode, yes, it's cool. We want to invest in constraint removals, not just Gucci toys that you go, oh my God, I want to do this thing, I want to buy that thing. Second thing, in a consolidation phase, what do? We want to delay any non-critical spend and invest in efficiency and reliability. What do you do in a volatility market? We stage gate your capital expenditure and we commit in tranches, definitely not in one hit. Here's the consequences that we see, and that is if the decisions that you make are not seasonally adjusted, you end up with a business that can look strong, but you know it feels unsafe. And the mental model I'd like you to take to this is that timing turns your decisions from emotional to mechanical, and it's the whole principle we've been saying around data over drama. You see, when economic weather and understanding the economic weather pattern becomes useful when it shows up in your hiring plan, in your spending plan, and your cash plan. Cash will feel tight when decisions are out of season. And this is why most owners still miss it. They don't have a rhythm for reviewing their timing. They rely on their mood and on big headlines. If you're reviewing timing when you're scared, you're already too late. You don't need a crystal ball. What you need is a monthly cadence that forces the reality onto the table. When you add the long-term cycle awareness into your decision making, that is understanding when conditions change, the change in the buyer behavior changes, financing appetite changes, cost pressure changes. When those things happen, you can make better quality decisions because actually you can make, whether it's going up, down or sideways, you can still have the market working for you. But the key part is make it practical. You're not predicting the world. What you're doing is you're choosing your risk posture for the next 90 days and sometimes beyond that. There are 4 parts to the mechanics of working this out and to putting this into your business. The first one is to build a simple, what I call mode call on your monthly review. And that is to look at the economic weather forecast and what's happening and ask or answer the question, are we in an expansion, consolidation, volatility, or in reinvention phase? Where are we at that particular stage? That is going to help you to understand the context on which you're applying the strategy. The second thing is write the decision posture next to it. Press, tighten, hedge, and redesign. So what you can do is when you look at your decisions, just put those words, press, tighten, hedge, and redesign. The third thing you want to be doing is run a 13-week rolling cash flow forecast that the view shows the consequences before they hit the bank account, because the forecast tells you what's coming up. So what that means is you can make adjustments to it before it becomes a reality and you go, oh my God, I've got enough cash and how I'm going to pay payroll tomorrow. Fourth thing to do is tie every major decision to a trigger and a kill switch. What would make you stop? What would make you reinvent the whole thing? The symptom you see pop up if you don't have this right is that you'll keep having the same cash conversations every month, just a different excuse. And I don't want that for you. Well, the other thing is you keep saying yes to projects that look good but create delivery drag or just stress the business out. The ripple effect is still the same, and that is that if you realize without a cadence, the founder's default will always be adrenaline or being an adrenaline junkie. It was probably what got them started in the first place. But that winning strategy now is the losing strategy in the future as you're going forward, because the business is like a nervous system, and we don't want that to be all wrecked out because you just keep on jumping from one thing to the next, because your cash is going up and down, and so is your emotions. The real big consequence of this is it's like cancer in a business, because the consequences is that your team now learn that priorities change with your stress levels, not with reality and not with data. The mindset for this is what we call the co-pilot discipline. You don't want to wait for turbulence to check your instruments. You want to make sure your instruments are dialed in before the turbulence hits. So the major point on this is the win is not about perfect forecasting. The win is getting in earlier, making calmer decisions with fewer irreversible mistakes. So stop running the business in your head and put timing into the numbers with rhythm, and that's how you scale profitably and also sustainably. Now, if you want this installed properly in your business, then the next step is to stop treating timing as a concept and start treating it as a real decision-making tool. So if your business is doing $2 million or more and life and business still feels heavier than you know it should be, then it doesn't have to be that way. What I would love to do is to connect with us, book a call, and we'll do a demo of how we install this into people's businesses. And if that works for you, that would be fantastic. Just go to the link below, and we'd love to help you out in that. Or if you've got a mate who's a business owner who feels like the business is not giving them what they need, and on the surface it looks okay, but deep down they know it's not quite right. They've usually had some really good wins, made some great decisions, the businesses are compounded and gone really well, but it's plateauing. Then send this to them, because this might be the one thing that's missing, that understanding. If they understood the seasons, that could be the big difference that makes a difference for them.